The circuit. It was that time of year again. Ito, the strawberry sharecropper, did not smile. It was natural. The peak of the strawberry season was over, and in the last few days most of them braceros, were not picking as many boxes as they had during June and July. As the last days of August disappeared, so did a number of braceros. Sunday, only one. The best picker came to work. I liked him. Sometimes we talked about her during our half-hour lunch break. That is how I found out he was from Jalisco, the same state my family was born in. Mexico, my family was from. That Sunday was the last time I saw him. When the sun had tired and sank behind the mountains, Ito signaled us that it was time to go home. Ya es hora, he yelled in his broken Spanish. Those were the words I waited for 12 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week after week, and the thought of not hearing them again saddened me. As we drove home, Papa did not say a word. With both hands on the wheel, he stared at the dirt road. My older brother, Roberto, was also silent. He leaned his head against the back and closed his eyes. Once in a while he cleared from his throat the dust that blew in from outside. Yes, it was that time of year. When I opened the front door to the shack, I stopped. Everything we owned was neatly packed in cardboard boxes. Suddenly, I felt even more of the weight of hours, days, weeks, and months of work. I sat down on a box. The thought of having to move to Fresno and knowing what was in store for me brought tears to my eyes. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed thinking about how much I hated this move. A little before 5 o'clock in the morning, Papa woke everyone up. A few minutes later, the yelling and screaming of my little brothers and sisters, for whom the move was a great adventure, broke the silence of dawn. Soon after, the barking of dogs accompanied them. When we packed the breakfast dishes, Papa went outside to start the Cucaracha. That was the name Papa gave his old black Plymouth. He had bought it in a used lot in Santa Rosa. Papa was very proud of his little jalopy. He had a right to be proud of it. He had spent a lot of time looking at other cars before buying this one. When he finally chose the Cucaracha, he checked thoroughly before driving it out of the car lot. He examined every inch of the car. He listened to the motor, tilting his head from side to side like a parrot, trying to detect any noises that spelled car trouble. After being satisfied with the looks and sounds of the car, Papa then insisted on knowing who the original owner was. He never did find out from the car salesman, but he bought the car anyway. Papa figured the original owner must have been important, because behind the rear seat of the car, he found a blue necktie. Papa parked the car out in front and left the motor running. "Listo?" he yelled. Without saying a word, Roberto and I began to carry boxes to the car. Roberto carried the 2 big ones, and I carried the 2 smaller ones. Papa then threw the mattress on top of the car roof and tied it with ropes to the front and rear bumpers. Everything was packed except Mama's pot. It was an old, large galvanized pot she had picked up at an army surplus store in Santa Maria. The pot had many dents and nicks, and the more dents and nicks it acquired, the more Mama liked it. "Mi olla," she used to say proudly. I held the front door open as Mama carefully carried her pot by both handles, making sure not to spill the cooked beans. When she got to the car, Papa reached out to help her with it. Roberto opened the rear car door, and Papa gently placed it on the floor behind the front seat. All of us then climbed in. Papa sighed, wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve, and said wearily, "Es todo." As we drove away, I felt a lump in my throat. I turned around and looked at our little shack for the last time. At sunset, we drove into a labor camp near Fresno. Since Papa did not speak English, Mama asked the camp foreman if he needed any more workers. "We don't need no more," said the foreman, scratching his head. "Check with Sullivan down the road. Can't miss him. He lives in a big white house with a fence around it." When we got there, Mama walked up to the house. She went through a white gate, past a row of rose bushes, up the stairs to the house. She rang the doorbell. The porch light went on, and a tall, husky man came out. They exchanged a few words. After the man went in, Mama clasped her hands and turned back to the car. "We have work. Mr. Sullivan said we could stay here the whole season," she said, gasping and pointing to an old garage near the stables. The garage was worn out by the years. It had no windows. The walls, eaten by termites, strained to support the roof full of holes. The dirt floor, populated by earthworms, looked like a gray road map. That night, by the light of a kerosene lamp, we unpacked and cleaned our new house. Roberta swept away the loose dirt, leaving the hard ground. Papa plugged the holes in the wall with old newspapers and tin can tops. Mama fed my little brothers and sisters. Papa and Roberto then brought in the mattress and placed it in the corner of the garage. "Mama, you and the little one sleep on the mattress. Roberto, Panchito, and I will sleep outside under the trees," Papa said. Early the next morning, Mr. Sullivan showed us where his crop was, and after breakfast, Papa, Roberto, and I headed to the vineyard to pick. Around 9 o'clock, the temperature had risen to almost 100 degrees. I was completely soaked in sweat, and my mouth felt as though I was chewing on a handkerchief. I walked to the end of the row, picked up the jug of water we brought, and began drinking. "Don't drink too much. You'll get sick," Roberto shouted. No sooner had he said that than I felt sick to my stomach. I dropped to my knees and let the jug roll off my back. I remained motionless with my eyes glued on the hot, sandy ground. All I could hear was the drone of insects. Slowly I began to recover. I poured water over my face and neck and watched the dirty water run down my arms to the ground. I still felt dizzy when we took a break to eat lunch. It was past 2 o'clock. We sat underneath a large walnut tree that was on the side of the road. While we ate, Papa jotted down the number of boxes we picked. Roberto drew designs on the ground with a stick. Suddenly, I noticed Papa's face turn pale as he looked down the road. "Here comes the school bus," he whispered loudly in alarm. Instinctively, Roberto and I ran and hid in the vineyards.